and welcome. I'm Geeta Mohan and you're watching World Today. The biggest prisoner swap deal since the Cold War between the US and Russia saw the release of Wall Street Journal journalist Ivan Gershkovich, ex-US Marine Paul Whelan, and Russian-American journalist Alsu Kurmasheva. But the deal was sealed only when Russia made its point. What Kremlin wanted in return, Vadim Krasikov, the suspected Russian agent who was serving a life sentence for murder not in America but in Germany. Turkey, which coordinated the exchange, said 10 people, including 2 children, had been moved to Russia, 13 to Germany and 3 to the United States of America. The biggest swap took place between Russia and Belarus on one side and the United States of America, Germany, Slovenia on the other. Poland and Norway were also involved in the swap deal. It was in February that Russian President Vladimir Putin, during an interview with former Fox News journalist Tucker Carlson, hinted at the release of WSJ journalist Gershkovich if hitman Vadim Krasikov was swapped in a prisoner deal. Krasikov is a Russian who served life sentence in Germany for the murder of an exiled Chechen Georgian dissident in a Berlin park in 2019. A German judge had accused Russia of state terrorism, saying the order to kill must have come from Putin himself, though Russia contested the judge's interpretation. In exchange for Krasikov, Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko decided to pardon Rico Krieger, a German sentenced to death on terrorism and other charges. A major escalation in the Israel-Gaza conflict that could reshape the Middle East or West Asian landscape. Israel has dealt a significant blow to Hamas with the assassination of its leader, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. The killing has ignited uncertainty across the region as speculation arises about possible American involvement, potential betrayals, and the ramifications for Iran-Israel relations. The scope of this conflict may extend beyond Gaza.
Ten months into the Israel-Gaza conflict, Israel has just scored its biggest hit on the Hamas. The group that mounted the biggest ever attack on the Jewish state on October 7th. The elusive chief of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, was assassinated in an aerial strike at his place of residence in Iran's capital. Haniyeh, who had lived a lavish life in Qatar for years, was in Iran for the inauguration of the country's new president. At 2 a.m., a guided airborne projectile, unclear if fired from an aircraft or drone, struck the safe house meant for retired Iranian military officials in North Tehran, where the Hamas chief is staying. Along with the Hamas leader, one of his bodyguards was also killed, seeming to rule out a ground raid, as the assassination was initially believed to be. The absence of any open-source imagery of smoke billowing from the attack site has raised questions. But the most plausible explanation could be a drone-operated remote-control precision hit good enough to take down 2 people without any collateral damage. The 62-year-old was born in a refugee camp near Gaza City. He joined Hamas in the late 1980s and swiftly rose through the ranks to become a close associate of Hamas's founder and spiritual leader, Sheikh Ahmad Yassin. Amid the Israel-Gaza war, Haniyeh acted as a negotiator in ceasefire talks. In April, Hamas claimed that Israeli airstrikes had killed 3 of Haniyeh's sons and 4 of his grandchildren still in Gaza. With the killing of Haniyeh, the only senior Hamas leader left is military wing chief Yahya Sinwar, believed to be the mastermind of the October 7 attack on Israel that ignited the war in Gaza. But there are many missing pieces to the Haniyeh assassination. Was there an American role in the killing? Was Haniyeh betrayed by his hosts in Iran? Will there be an escalation between Iran and Israel now? Or could the end of Hamas chief speed up the return of Israeli hostages, over 100 of which remain in bombed-out Gaza? Bureau Report, India Today.
While nobody has claimed responsibility for this assassination, I spoke with a retired colonel of the U.S. Army, Colonel Jeffrey Fisher, who explained exactly how this entire attack could have been carried out. Listen in.
This is this is a extremely surgical strike. The intelligence required to be able to get that close to him, mitigate civilian casualties, and be able to accomplish it. I mean, let's be fair. This was the guy Hamas probably protected most. He probably had the biggest security detail. He had his likely his own intelligence forces, making sure that he was safe. He was also in a foreign country. I mean, he lives in Qatar, Oman, and he was visiting Iran. So the IRGC was also going to be providing another layer of security to protect him, right? So to be able to get through all those layers of security and get to him, according to Iran, I mean, right now, this is an interesting situation, right? So Iran's the one that's claiming his death, and we have no corroborating evidence yet. Right now, we don't have a lot of information. What is circulating on back channels right now, and what we are hearing is that it's a missile strike. We have no pictures or videos, right? So if I could jump away, right? Usually when we have assassinations like this in the Middle East, what is normal is we have some kind of proof of an event, right? We have a video or an image of a car that's been blown up, or bullet holes, or a building that's been destroyed. And then from there, we end up a few hours later, we hear of the assassination. This is completely different, right? We've heard of the assassination, but we have no corroborating evidence just yet. So it's a very strange situation. So we've heard from the Iranians that this was an airstrike or some kind of missile strike in the air. It wasn't, a point blank Masoud operative that got directly inside. Where the airstrike one becomes a little bit of a challenge is usually in Tehran. If there's any kind of explosions, social media and other places immediately pick up on it. They're posting it. There was minor reports of an explosion in Tehran late last night, roughly around 1:30 in the morning local there, but there was no corroborating evidence. So again, if it's an airstrike, it's going to be a very surgical one. It's going to be a very small missile. It's not going to be, a 2,000-pound joint direct attack munition, which is, the normal thing that flies from an F-35. Plus, we'd have to evaluate how did Israel get all the way through Iranian layered air defense systems to get to the capital to be able to deliver a weapon like that. When an airplane launches out of Israel, right, and it starts heading towards Iran, it takes a long time to get to Tehran, right? Exactly. So you'd expect those long-range air defense radars to be able to intercept that target track, to be able to prosecute it, to figure out what's going on, to monitor which direction it's going, to be able to notify people in Tehran that there's an inbound airstrike. And this is what air raid warning sirens are for, right? You know that there's an attack coming. Somehow this attack, if it was an airplane, again, I want to make sure that your listeners understand. We're still working on proof, right? We don't, other than for the Iranian government telling us this happened, we don't have a lot, right? So I'm speculating a little bit here for your listeners, and I think that's healthy right now because we don't have an option to figure this out. But you're right that this is amazing. The other option for an airstrike would be that Israeli operatives had gotten into Iran and were able to launch some kind of drone. Get the drone up into the air in and around the Tehran area. This would be a smaller munition, right? We'd have a smaller warhead, smaller frag pattern. This could go in a little bit easier undetected, and the time of flight or that reaction time would be significantly cut down.
Haniyeh's rise through the ranks of Hamas was marked by several imprisonments and a notable stint as Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority. Haniyeh's death comes at a critical moment as talks for a potential ceasefire and hostage release were underway. The repercussions of his death will likely have significant impact across the region.
He was the man who led the Hamas since 2017. Born in a Gaza refugee camp, Ismail Haniyeh joined Hamas during the first Intifada and quickly rose through its ranks. After being imprisoned by Israel several times, he became a prominent leader within the organization. In 2006, he briefly served as Prime Minister of the Palestinian Authority after Hamas won the elections, though his tenure was cut short due to political challenges. Despite being designated a global terrorist by the United States, Haniyeh managed to engage in international diplomacy. He masterminded the Hamas' surprise attack on Israel on October 7th. This attack led to a severe escalation with thousands of casualties and a worsening humanitarian crisis in Gaza. His death comes as talks of a potential ceasefire and release of hostages were ongoing. The situation remains fluid and the repercussions of Haniyeh's death will likely be felt across the region. Bureau Report, India Today.
10 months into the ongoing and devastating conflict in Gaza, Israel's defense forces have ramped up their operations with a series of significant strikes. The Israeli military announced that Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif had been killed in a strike it carried out in July in Gaza's southern area of Khan Yunis. The past week has seen a dramatic escalation as Israel confirms the elimination of several high-profile targets linked to Hamas and Hezbollah. We decode the implications of these high-stake operations.
10 months into the brutal conflict in Gaza, the Israeli Defense Forces are on a roll, eliminating a host of top-level targets. The big one on Wednesday was Hamas chief Ismail Haniyeh, killed in a mysterious airstrike in Iran's capital. Just hours earlier, Lebanon's Hezbollah confirmed that senior commander Fouad Shukra was killed in an Israeli strike on the outskirts of Beirut, the Lebanese capital, the most senior figure from the group to be killed since the conflict began. Fouad Shukra was also wanted by America for his role in the notorious 1983 bombing of a US Marines barrack in Beirut in which hundreds died. The US had announced a reward of $5 million for information about him and his whereabouts. And now, in one of the biggest hits in Gaza, Israel has confirmed the death of Hamas military chief Mohammed Deif, who masterminded October 7th that triggered the current conflict. Going by the war name, the Guest, the IDF has confirmed that the elusive and mysterious Deif was killed on July the 13th when Israeli fighter jets struck a compound in southern Gaza's Khan Yunis area. Mohammed Deif was notorious for having dodged at least 7 Israeli assassination attempts, including multiple attempts during the current conflict in Gaza. If his death is confirmed, it would mean that Israel has eliminated and confirmed the elimination of 3 top-level Iran-backed targets in the Hamas and Hezbollah. While Israel has owned the killing of Mohammed Deif, it has stayed silent on Ismail Haniyeh's killing, even though it has claimed responsibility for the airstrike in Beirut that killed Fouad Shukra. But it seems certain that both were killed by Israeli missiles. With the entire top rung of the Hamas eliminated, the last man standing is Yahya Sinwar, the outfit's top commander who masterminded the October 7th attack on Israel. The political bureau head of Hamas in Gaza, he stands now to inherit the leadership of the group. Bureau Report, India Today.
Far-right demonstrations turned violent across England in the wake of mass stabbing that took place in Southport. British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer warned social media for spreading misinformation that caused the violent protests. Take a look at this report.
More than hundreds were arrested in violent protest that broke out over the fatal stabbing incident that took place in the northwest English town of Southport. 3 girls were stabbed to death and 5 other children were critically injured during an attack in a Taylor Swift-themed event. The protest followed after misinformation was spread on social media regarding the suspect being a radical Islamist migrant. Demonstrators clashed with the police and set the police vehicles on fire. Officers were attacked with bricks and large garbage containers. Videos showed protesters hurling flares and beer cans near British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer's residence in 10 Downing Street. Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer met with police chiefs and called the protest as a violent disorder and condemned far-right demonstrators for causing violence across country. He also warned social media companies for spreading misinformation.
Let me also say to large social media companies and those who run them, violent disorder clearly whipped up online, that is also a crime. It's happening on your premises, and the law must be upheld everywhere.
A 17-year-old was charged with murder by Liverpool Crown Court. Mass stabbing in Southport is seen as one of the worst attacks on children in recent history. With Neha Kumari, Bureau Report, India Today.
Teachers in Bangladesh protested against the recent violence that claimed the lives of many students. The South Asian country has seen a spate of violence in recent weeks over quota in government jobs.
Students in Bangladesh came out onto the streets to protest against the deaths, arrests and intimidation of fellow students. Police had detained at least 8 students near the High Court premises, where lawyers and teachers joined them in march for justice rally.
I urge the citizens of Bangladesh to save your children. Please come down on the road. You cannot stop us with bullets. You cannot stop this with murders. We will shed more blood if needed. All the crimes will be washed away with blood.
The teachers were held by faculty members of Dhaka University. A squad of paramilitary police officers were on standby as university professors took turns to speak at the rally.
What we have seen in the past few days is how our students were oppressed, how many people were killed without any justice, and we want to create a political free university campus. I asked the detained boy why he was here. He said he came for the March for Justice. I told him to stay together. He agreed, but the police came in and dragged him away. We tried to stop them and requested the police to search him in front of us, but they did not listen. We requested them to check our mobile phones and our bags, but the police were determined to take the student away. I tried my best to save him, but I could not.
Bangladesh has been going through turmoil as government job quota reform movement turned fatal, claiming over 150 lives. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina's government had imposed a week-long curfew with military forces on the ground to take control of the situation. Experts have blamed the unrest on stagnant job growth in the private sector and high rates of youth unemployment that have made government jobs more attractive at a time when inflation is running around 10%. With Mahashweta Lala, Bureau Report, India Today.
That's all in this edition of World Today. But before I go, here is U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris mistakenly calling herself as president. During the eulogy for late Democratic Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, Harris' slip-up led to a wild reaction from the crowd present at the event, despite her repeated attempts to correct herself. Harris's remarks quickly became a talking point, and the video is now going viral on social media. That's all for now. Goodbye and take care.
It was Sheila Jackson Lee whose bill made Juneteenth a federal holiday, which as a United States Senator I was proud to co-sponsor, and then as Vice President, it was my honor, with the President, it was my honor with our President Joe Biden to stand beside Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee as our President signed her bill into law.